Jake sat alone in the dim control room, watching the stars on the main screen. Tiny white points floated in the dark, peaceful and silent. They did not know that someone far away had decided their fate. The alarm chime sounded, soft but sharp. Incoming high-priority signal. Jake straightened in his chair. He was a fleet coordinator for the United Earth Navy, stationed on the orbital command station above Mars. He had seen many signals. He had seen pirate broadcasts, trade offers, distress calls. He had never seen a signal tagged like this. Unknown origin, galaxy-wide distribution, forced priority override. Route it to main, he said. The staff around him moved fast. Hands tapped keys, eyes flicked across screens. The main display shifted from the stars to a single rotating symbol. It glowed in pale gold, made of circles and lines like a crown drawn by an engineer. Jake felt a chill. He had seen that symbol only in old files, old stories. He did not think it was real. Most people did not. The Galactic Empire. The voice that came with the symbol was calm and cold. It spoke in perfect translated English, with no accent, no warmth. To all emergent civilizations within the second and third spiral arms, it said, you have been observed. You have developed faster than light travel. You have reached beyond your home systems. You are now subject to imperial law. The control room fell silent. No one moved. Even the background chatter from other stations cut off as people listened. Jake glanced at the status feed. The same message was going to every human ship and station at once. It was also being rebroadcast from relay buoys and other systems. They were not the only ones hearing this. Every young species in reach of the Empire was listening too. You will submit to imperial oversight, the voice continued. You will limit your military development as instructed. You will pay tribute equal to the prescribed percentage of your production. You will surrender any territory the Empire claims as strategic. Non-compliance will be corrected. Resistance will be erased. The voice did not shout. It did not need to. Jake's jaw tightened, erased. The word sat heavy in his chest. The message shifted. The symbol vanished, replaced by the image of a figure that was almost humanoid, tall and thin, wrapped in smooth silver armor. A pale blue glow hid its face. This is a formal warning, the figure said. You have one standard cycle to comply. Your choices will shape your survival. Then the image cut out. The golden symbol faded. The stars returned. For a long moment, no one in the control room spoke. Finally, a young technician whispered, "Was that real?" Jake did not answer. He was already pulling data from the signal feed, sending copies to the analysis teams. "Get me Central Command," he said, "highest level." Down on Earth, thousands of kilometers below, Laura sat at her desk in the Global Communications Center in Denver. Her screen was full of code and waveforms as she replayed the broadcast again and again. Laura was a systems analyst who worked with deep pattern scans. She did not care much about politics. She cared about signals, noise, and the strange little secrets hidden in both. Her colleague leaned over her shoulder. "Looks like we've got our first real empire, huh?" he joked quietly. Laura did not laugh. Her eyes tracked every spike and curve in the signal. "It's not as clean as it looks," she said. "See these layers?" She pointed at a faint set of marks under the main broadcast line. "There's something else riding along with the main message." "A hidden threat?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "No, more like backup traffic, internal routing, status reports. They did not intend for us to see this, but our filters caught it." She cleaned up the signal, removed the noise, and focused on the hidden lines. They were short. They were sharp. They carried nothing like the cold certainty of the main speech. Her brows drew together. "What do you see?" her colleague asked. Laura zoomed in and converted part of it into a text model. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear enough. "Fleet suasion broadcast successful," it read. "Non-compliant zones detected. Probability of large-scale resistance remains low. Probability of unexpected retaliation from emergent species, unknown. Strategic anxiety index, elevated. Laura sat back. Strategic anxiety, she said softly. What's that supposed to mean? Her colleague asked. It means they're not as sure as they sound. She saved the file and tagged it for top-level review. Then she added a single line of her own in the notes. The Empire is afraid. On the other side of the planet, in a secure chamber under New Geneva, the Emergency Council had already gathered. Leaders from Earth and the colonies came in through secure channels, their faces projected as holograms around the oval table. Some were on Mars, some near Jupiter, some on outposts around nearby stars. Distance did not matter. The threat was the same. Jake appeared as a projection at one side of the chamber, his uniform crisp, his face tired. He had not slept since the broadcast began. At the head of the table sat the Secretary General of the United Earth Alliance. Beside her sat senior officers, scientists, and cultural advisors. Two of them were Brooks and Turner. Was a former Marine, now a strategic planner. His hair was cut short, his face lined not by age but by too many hard choices. Had once been a teacher on a lunar settlement. Now she helped manage civilian responses during crises. She was good at understanding how people reacted when the sky fell. The Secretary General spoke first. You have all heard the broadcast, she said. You have seen the Empire's terms. Our first task is clear. We must decide how humanity will respond. One of the older council members, a governor from a wealthy orbital city, leaned forward. We cannot fight this, he said. Not now. We do not even know the full size of their fleet. If they say resistance means erasure, we should listen. We should comply. We can negotiate the details later. Others nodded. Fear moved quietly through the room. Brooks shook his head. With respect, he said, that is not how this works. You do not give bullies everything they ask for and hope they stop hitting you. If we accept this, we teach them something very simple. We teach them that threats work on us. And what is your plan? The governor shot back. To throw our ships at a galactic empire and hope for a miracle. We have families in orbit, children on near colonies. We cannot risk them for pride. This is not about pride, replied. His voice was low but firm. This is about whether we are allowed to decide our own future. Once we agree that someone else owns our sky, we will never get it back. Turner listened, hands folded on the table. People are scared, she said. I have feeds from all major cities. Some want to surrender right away. Some want to fight right away. Most just want someone to tell them they are going to live. She looked around the table. If we choose submission, we need to be honest. We may stay alive, but our children will grow up under an empire that sees us as pieces on a board. If we choose resistance, we must also be honest. People may die. Colonies may burn. The Secretary General turned to Jake's projection. Coordinator, she said, what is the state of our fleet? Jake brought up a smaller display above the table, showing dots and lines representing human ships and stations. We have 8 fleets across our space, he said. Our ships are smaller than what we think the Empire uses, but they are flexible. Our crews are highly trained. We know our own systems very well. Compared to them, the governor asked. Jake did not hesitate. They likely outnumber us. Their ships are larger. Their technology is older than our civilization. On paper, they win. Silence. But Jake added, they do not know us. Glanced at him, interest in her eyes. What do you mean? She asked. Jake switched the display. Now it showed maps of human expansion over the last 2 centuries. Lines stretched from Earth to Mars, from Mars to the outer planets, then to nearby stars. Some routes were smooth arcs. Others were jagged, turning around failed colonies, wars, and disasters. We are not a clean story, he said. We did not rise under the guidance of one central power. We rose through chaos. We fought each other, we almost destroyed our own planet, and we kept going. Every time the universe tried to push us down, we found a way to stand again. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the projections one by one. We may not be stronger ship to ship, he said, but we are used to standing where others would fall. The Secretary General paused, thinking. Analysts sent an update, she said, reading from her pad. Her team has found hints of fear in the Empire's internal signal layers. They feel the need to project power across the galaxy, but they are not as certain as they sound. So they shout louder than they need to, said quietly, like a man walking alone at night who sings so he does not hear his own fear. The governor frowned. Even if they are afraid, that does not make them weak, he said. We are still outnumbered. Fearful giants are still giants. True, said, but fear changes how you see things. If they already believe every new species is a threat, they will move too fast. They will see danger in every shadow. We can use that. The Secretary General folded her hands. We have 3 real options, she said. 1, we comply and hope to survive under their rule. 2, we declare open war. 3, we do something else. Something that shows we will not bend but also does not give them an easy excuse to erase us. Jake knew what she was leading toward. He had been thinking the same thing. We can move the fleet, he said, carefully, not into an attacking posture, not in a way that targets their assets, but in a way that shows we are not cowering. We can let them see our ships. Let them see that we are organized, calm, and not fearful. Won't they see that as defiance? The governor asked. Yes, Jake said, but not as aggression. There is a difference. Leaned forward. And what about our message? She asked. They sent us a warning. Do we send one back? Gave a small, humorless smile. If we send a warning, they will treat it as a challenge, he said. If we say nothing, they will think we are too scared to answer. There is a third way. We send something that is not a warning or a surrender, something they do not expect. Like what? The Secretary General asked. Like us, said all of us. The room looked at her. She continued, voice steady. We send them our story, our real story, not the polished one from the history books, the one with all the mess, the wars, the disasters, the times we nearly wiped ourselves out. We show them how many times we have failed and how many times we have stood back up. We show them what patience looks like when it is pushed too far. We let them see what happens when humans are backed into a corner. The governor stared at her. Why would we expose our weaknesses to them? He asked. Shook her head. You see weakness, she said. I see something they have never understood. If they rule by fear, they expect terror to break us. They need to learn that it does not. The Secretary General looked back at Jake. Can our fleet move into a visible but non-aggressive stance? She asked. Yes, he said. We can position ships at the edges of our space in clear patterns, not like an attack formation, more like a boundary line. It will take time, but we can do it without alarming our own people too much. And the message? She asked. I can work with Laura's team, said. They can handle the signal complexity. I can help shape the story so it makes sense, even to an empire that has never known chaos like ours. Nodded. If we do this, he said, we must be ready for both outcomes. They may see our stance and decide we are too much trouble. They may decide to crush us anyway. But at least then we face what is coming on our own terms. The Secretary General stood. Her hologram flickered slightly as she straightened. Then we decide now, she said. Does humanity submit without question to a distant throne? Or does humanity stand even if we stand under a shadow? One by one, the council members gave their votes. Some voices shook. Some did not. Some wanted safety. Some wanted freedom. But as the count rose, the path became clear. They would not kneel. When it was done, the Secretary General spoke again. Coordinator, she said. Begin planned fleet mobilization as discussed. Defensive posture, visible calm, no first strike. Yes, ma'am, Jake said. Turner, she continued. Work with Laura and her team. Create a message that speaks for all of us. Show them what we are. And be sure of this, whatever you send, it will be remembered. Swallowed, feeling the weight of it. I understand, she said. The meeting ended. The holograms faded one by one. The room grew quiet. Outside, the night over New Geneva was clear. The stars looked small and harmless, like tiny lights pinned to a dark ceiling. Stepped out of the building and stared up at them for a long time. She thought of children on distant colonies, sleeping under different skis. She thought of miners on harsh moons, breathing recycled air and building futures they might never see. She thought of oceans on Earth, rising and falling as they had long before any empire. Far above, in orbit around Mars, Jake stood in front of the main display again. This time, the map showed their ships starting to move. Not rushing, not scrambling, just shifting like a person who had decided to stand a little. Send initial orders, he said. His staff moved with quiet focus. Messages flew between stations and fleets. Engines warmed, ships turned. On Earth, Laura sat with her team, the Empire's broadcast still flickering on one of the side screens. She opened a new file, blank and waiting. Sat beside her. Where do we start? Laura asked. Thought for a moment. Start with us, she said. Start with the truth. We grew up on a world that tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. We fought storms, earthquakes, disease, and each other. We are not the kind of species that bows because someone far away tells us to. Laura's fingers began to move over the keys. And then, she asked. Then, said, we show them what happens when someone tries to take our sky. Across the galaxy, on ships built by an ancient empire, long-distance sensors watched the small human fleet begin to shift. Data flowed. Warnings flashed. Somewhere, someone far away read the numbers and frowned. The Galactic Empire had issued its warning. Now quietly, calmly, without firing a single shot, humanity's fleet began to send its own message. The human fleet moved with slow care, as if every ship was part of a single mind. From the edge of known space, distant sensors watched their quiet motion. There was no rush. There was no wild signal traffic. To the outside eye, it looked calm, almost gentle, but behind that calm was deep focus and clear intent. Stood on the bridge of the forward vessel, horizon light, with his hands resting on the edge of the command console. Around him, rows of crew worked in silence broken only by soft voices and the low hum of systems. He had guided ships through asteroid fields and pirate zones, but this felt different. This was not just about survival. This was about showing the galaxy who they were. Hold current vector, said. Maintain distance from Imperial boundary beacons. No sudden changes. We want them to see us clearly. Aye, sir, the navigation officer replied. On the main screen, points of light representing other human ships glowed in steady lines. They were not arranged like weapons pointed at a target. They formed patterns, slow curves, and open spaces, like a quiet line drawn across the dark. It was deliberate. It was meant to be seen. In another section of the ship, Grant sat at a bank of communication panels. Her task was not to speak yet, but to listen. Dozens of channels streamed into her station, many of them encrypted and layered. Among them were faint traces of Imperial chatter, cracked by human signal tools and careful decoding. I'm seeing panic patterns, she murmured, scrolling through light blue text on her screen. They are trying to keep it hidden, but their coordination signals are speeding up. Her assistant leaned closer. Are they preparing to attack? Not yet, said. They're trying to understand us. That might be more dangerous. She opened a new window and flagged the data for in Central Command. To her, the Empire's responses felt rushed, like someone who had expected obedience and instead found quiet eyes looking back. Far away in the center of Imperial space, Officers in cold halls watched the same human movement. Their monitors showed neat lines and calm spacing, not the wild scatter of fear. Discussions echoed through their upper chambers, tense and uncertain. They had expected submission or chaos. They had planned for both. What they saw now was something else. Back on Earth, Turner and Laura sat in a glass-walled operations room overlooking rows of analysts and translators. The fleet had begun its silent move, and now their role became heavier by the minute. The message had to travel soon, and it had to speak clearly. Laura tapped into a deep channel, adjusting waveform harmonics so that the signal would reach even the furthest Imperial arrays. Instead of threat tones or severe command markers, she chose smoother frequencies. They were not pleading. They were steady. "This will sound strange to them," Laura said. "It won't fit into their normal categories." "Good," replied. "If it confuses them first, they might listen instead of strike." They began to build the heart of the message. It did not start with weapons or rank. It began with a quiet description of a small blue world and its long storms. It spoke of early humans standing against wind, cold, hunger, and each other. It spoke of cities rising and falling, of mistakes, and of slow learning. When the first draft scrolled across the screen, read it aloud in a low voice, imagining the words reaching alien ears. "We were born on a world that did not forgive weakness. Our children learned to walk under thunder. Our leaders failed and our people rose again. We are not perfect. We have caused pain, but we endure." Laura nodded once. "They will understand one thing," she said, "that we are not afraid to face ourselves." On Horizon Light received a subtle update. A small symbol appeared on his screen confirming that the first phase of the signal structure was complete. He exhaled slowly. This was still the quiet part, the part before the galaxy truly answered. "Status of outer perimeter?" he asked. "Stable," the tactical officer replied. "Imperial scouts are holding position. No active targeting fingers detected." Folded his arms. "Let them watch," he said. "We're not hiding." Across several light minutes of space, tiny Imperial observer craft hovered, feeding data back to their masters. Their reports spoke of human ships maintaining consistent distances, harmonizing power outputs, and showing no visible readiness to fire. For the first time in ages, some Imperial officers felt unsure about what they were seeing. On Earth, the first full test pulse was prepared. It was not the final message. It was a gentle probe, a wave carrying resonance but no words, a feeling rather than a statement. Laura gave the nod. "Sending test pulse," she announced. The screen showed a line stretching out into the stars, a silent touch across the void. All eyes watched the response window. Seconds passed, then more. A faint echo returned, thin but visible. It was not hostile. It was not welcoming either. It was simply there, acknowledging the contact. Allowed herself a small breath. "They felt it," she said. "Good." Laura leaned closer to the data, and they didn't swat it away. Back on the Horizon Light saw the echo as well, her lips pressed together in thought. "They are curious," she said quietly. "They do not understand restraint." "Let them learn," answered. Hours passed as the fleet held its formation. There were moments of tension, times when Imperial movement spiked or when signals grew sharp. Each time the human ships remained steady, their response always slow and controlled. Jake observed all of this from the central command hub. His eyes followed patterns, numbers, and small shifts that could turn history in either direction. He had coordinated maneuvers before, but never one that carried the fate of an entire species in silence. "They're still watching," one of his officers said. "Let them," Jake replied. "Watching means they haven't decided to destroy us yet." He glanced at the communications panel where updates from Laura and flowed in. The message was almost ready. It would carry the voice of a planet, not just a government. That thought weighed on him more than any weapon. adjusted a clean text block that would serve as the core statement. It avoided dramatic language. It avoided anger. It spoke plainly, like a person choosing honesty instead of noise. "We do not seek to bend your empire," she read softly. "We do not seek to break it. We seek only to stand as who we are on the ground we have earned." Laura smiled faintly. "They've never heard that before." "Then maybe they will remember it," said. Elsewhere in the Imperial Command Cluster, a senior strategist watched the human fleet on a massive projection. His kind had ruled for centuries through fear and appearance of perfection. He had never seen a species refuse to show either terror or blind obedience. The calm unsettled him. "They are exposing themselves," a junior officer said. "We have clear firing lines." "And yet they do not use them," the strategist replied. "It is as if they choose patience over power." He paused, eyes narrowing. "That may be more dangerous." Back among the human ships, crew members whispered among themselves during brief off-duty moments. Some spoke of families. Some spoke of distant home worlds. Yet even in fear, none of them asked to turn away. The sight of their formation, calm and united, gave a strange comfort. Moved between stations, checking on his people. He nodded to them, careful with his words but steady in presence. He knew that each face on this ship trusted him to lead through the unknown. "We're holding well," a young engineer said with forced cheer. "We're doing more than holding," replied. "We're speaking without shouting." As hours turned to a full cycle, the final message was almost complete. Every word had been weighed, tested, and tuned. Watched as Laura prepared the release sequence. "Once this goes out," Laura said, "we cannot take it back." "No," answered, "but we can stand by it." They exchanged a quiet look of shared resolve. In orbit above a distant colony world, a small human child looked up at the stars through a thin dome window, unaware that history was breathing in the dark outside. Somewhere else, a farmer on a dusty moon wiped sweat from his brow and listened to the faint hum of automated news repeating the Empire's warning and the human government's silence. None of them knew the full shape of what was happening, only that something vast was shifting. Then the final signal lock flashed green. "We are ready," Laura said. Closed her eyes for a brief second, then nodded. "Send it." The message flowed outward, carried by harmonics and carefully shaped pulses. It crossed empty space, slipped through relay fields, and reached the waiting Imperial arrays. Unlike a weapon blast, it did not burn. Unlike a surrender code, it did not bow. It simply spoke. On Horizon Light, watched the transmission curve rise and move away. Her fingers tightened slightly on the console. "There it goes," she whispered. Did not answer at first. He only watched the fatting trail like a quiet line drawn between two worlds that had never met properly before. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we have shown them who we are." Deep in Imperial Command, screens lit with foreign data. Translators struggled, then slowly aligned. Officers leaned closer, listening not to a threat but to a story. A story of storms, scars, stubborn hope, and calm resistance. For the first time in many cycles, the Empire did not respond immediately. And in that silence, the universe paused, waiting to see if calm strength could stand where raw power expected fear. Silence spread across the edges of human space after the message was sent. The fleet held its place, calm and steady, like a line drawn with care against the dark unknown. Every ship stayed alert, every crew member ready, but no one moved without purpose. Even fear learned to wait. On the bridge of Horizon Light, watched the steady glow of distant Imperial vessels. They remained just beyond the invisible boundary, close enough to see clearly, far enough to avoid direct contact. Their lights flickered in patterns that meant little to human eyes, yet their presence felt heavy in the air. "No change in posture," the tactical officer reported. "No weapon charge spikes, no approach vectors." Nodded slowly. "They are thinking," he said. "That is better than them rushing." Grant continued to track the foreign communications, her headphones resting over one ear, screen filled with soft streams of data. Her fingers moved through layers of filters and translators, searching for anything useful. Some signals were sharp and cold. Others carried subtle tension, like restless whispers behind closed doors. "I am detecting debate patterns," she said. "They are arguing." Glanced over, arguing about what? "About us," replied. "Some want to strike, others want to understand. Their command structure is reacting in conflict." He let out a slow breath. "Good," he said. "A fractured mind hesitates." Across the communication network, Jake followed every update with careful attention. He watched the readings, the timing, the small shifts in Imperial behavior. He felt the long pressure of responsibility sitting on his shoulders, but he kept his voice even when giving instructions. "Maintain present formations," he ordered. "No sudden acceleration, no lock-on behavior. Keep all defensive shields balanced." His officers obeyed without question. They knew that one mistake could turn quiet space into fire. On Earth, Turner remained beside Laura, who was now monitoring the reactions to their message. The data stream from Imperial space came in slow waves. The words of humanity had reached their destination, and now the echo was forming. "Partial translation complete," Laura said. "They are replaying it, not just once. Multiple sections are being reviewed at different speeds." Folded her arms. "That means they are trying to understand it, not just glance at it." "Yes," Laura agreed. "They are not treating it like propaganda or threat. This is new for them." In the Imperial Command Center, a wide hall of cold light and sharp design, senior figures stood around a floating projection. The human message flowed in segments, translated into Imperial symbols and tones. A low murmur echoed among them as each line played. They heard of storms and hunger. They heard of conflict and rebuilding. They heard of a species that refused to hide its scars. Not once did the message promise destruction. Not once did it beg for mercy. One of the older commanders shifted his stance. "They expose weakness freely," he said. "This should make them simple to break." Another commander shook her head. "It does not look like weakness," she replied. "It looks like certainty." The strategist who had watched the fleet movement earlier listened in silence. He saw the larger pattern forming. A species that chose calm over chaos did not fit their old models. "They do not fear us," he stated. "That does not mean they are arrogant. It means fear is not their primary guide." A younger officer lowered his voice. "What does that make them then?" The strategist did not answer right away. Back on Horizon Light, a subtle signal tremor passed through his console. Her eyes narrowed as she focused on the source. "We have incoming transmission," she announced. "Not a full message. It is limited, focused." Stepped forward slightly. "Origin." "Central Imperial Command Node," she replied. "It is not a threat code. It is a query pattern." The bridge fell quiet as she activated the translation layer. The signal formed slow, careful words. "Human fleets," the voice said, carrying a neutral tone. "Clarify intention. Are you declaring hostile intent by presence movement?" Exchanged a glance with his bridge officer. This was the first direct question, not an order, not a threat, a question. He opened a secure channel to Jake and Central Command, passing the data through. Within moments, the reply instructions came back. Leaned toward the central microphone and spoke in steady English, knowing the translator would carry his words. "We are not declaring hostility," he said. "We are declaring our presence. We are placing ourselves where we can be seen. We will not strike first. We will not disappear either." There was no flourish, no anger, just clear intent. The signal returned to silence, but a few moments later saw the Imperial data lines shift again. Internal processing surged. She felt tension rise in her throat, but she did not remove her eyes from the screen. On Earth, Laura and received the relay of response, smiled faintly. "He spoke well," she said, "clear and calm." Laura nodded. That kind of tone forces them to slow down. Time stretched. Every heartbeat on every ship felt louder. Engineers checked systems again and again, not because they doubted their work, but because action helped settle nerves. Medical staff prepared quietly. Security teams remained at posts, silent and focused. In one small corner of the fleet, a young crew member whispered to another, "Do you think they will fire on us?" The other shook his head. "Not yet. They're trying to read us like a book they don't understand." His words carried an uneasy truth. Back at the Imperial Command, the strategist finally spoke again as new data arrived. "They have answered without fear," he said. "Their fleet posture remains stable. Their signal patterns remain controlled." "Recommendation?" the supreme authority figure asked. He paused. "We continue observation. We do not strike, not yet." This choice rippled through their system like a soft tremor. For an empire built on strength and fast judgment, choosing to wait felt almost unnatural. The next phase came an hour later. Detected another transmission, stronger than the first but still measured. "They are sending something again," she said. "Not from their flagship. This seems ceremonial." Raised an eyebrow, "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was different this time. It was layered, careful, almost formal. "Human presence has been observed. Human message has been reviewed. Empire acknowledges receipt. Clarification requested. Define concept of standing without desire to dominate." Several crew members glanced at one another. "They don't understand peaceful strength," murmured. He activated the channel again. "Standing without desire to dominate means we protect what is ours and respect what is yours," he said. "It means we do not seek to rule your space or command your people. We seek to exist without chains." The channel closed. A fragile quiet followed. On Earth, watched the live feed and felt a strange mix of tension and hope form in her chest. Humanity was not just defending its border. It was teaching an old empire a new way to see power. Laura leaned back in her chair slightly. "Every word we send forces them further from their normal playbook," she said. "Soon they will have to choose between breaking us or understanding us." Stared at the glowing waveform, "And that will show us what kind of empire they truly are." In the hours that followed, small shifts continued. Imperial ships adjusted their distance, not closing in, not retreating either. They mirrored some of the human formations carefully, as if testing ideas. It was subtle but visible. Noticed immediately. "They are copying our spacing patterns," he said. "Trying to find meaning in them," the navigation officer responded. "Or trying to feel what it is like to hold calm lines," said quietly. Jake saw the same thing and allowed himself a thin, cautious smile. "They are adapting," he murmured. "That means our message matters." Later, in an imperial chamber far from human eyes, the strategist stood alone, watching the final part of the human story replay. It spoke of unity, of facing darkness together, of choosing restraint even when anger burned hot. His kind had built great structures, conquered vast systems, and ruled through command, yet something in this message stirred unfamiliar thought. He whispered a quiet line to himself, a thought he did not yet voice aloud. Perhaps dominance is not the only form of strength. On Horizon Light, the crew remained at their positions as the stars burned cold outside. Stood firm, eyes steady, letting quiet lead rather than fear. "Maintain position," he ordered. "No deviation, we show them consistency." Hours bled into another cycle. Then another signal came, not aggressive, not urgent, but weighted with decision. Straightened, "Major encoded broadcast incoming," she announced, "from the highest Imperial tier." All sound seemed to soften around her. The voice that followed was deeper, rich with authority but no longer sharp. "Human fleet," it said. Empire leadership recognizes deviation from expected response. Empire has not yet reached final determination. Continue current posture. Further dialogue will follow. The message ended. Looked around his bridge. He saw tired faces, strained shoulders, but also quiet strength in their eyes. They did not threaten us, he said. They did not demand surrender. They hesitated, replied, that matters. Far below, on Earth, slowly released the breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. They are still deciding, she said softly, but we are no longer just targets. Laura nodded. We are a problem they cannot solve with fear alone. Out in the depth of space between ancient empire and stubborn new species, the moment hovered. Not peace, not war, something fragile and undefined. Humanity's fleet held steady, silent, unbroken. The empire watched, calculating, uncertain. And between them, a new idea struggled into being, one shaped not by threat but by choice. For the first time, the galaxy felt the pause before a truth that would change everything. The waiting stretched on, slow and heavy, as if time itself was unsure of the next step. The human fleet remained where it was, balanced and steady, neither moving forward nor pulling back. Every ship, every crew member, every silent system worked in quiet unity. They had made their stand. Now they would live with whatever answer came. Walked the length of the bridge of horizon light, his boots echoing softly on the floor. He glanced at the faces of his crew. Some looked tired, some looked tense, none looked ready to run. That alone filled him with a deep, silent pride. Status update, he said. All systems stable, the engineering officer replied. No power fluctuations, shields at normal defensive range, Imperial formations holding steady. Nodded and returned his eyes to the main display. The Imperial ships glowed faintly, like distant thoughts trying to take shape. He wondered what kind of being stood behind those hulls. Did they feel fear? Did they feel doubt? Or were they only guided by cold command? On Earth, Turner paced slowly in the operations room, her gaze shifting between screens. Laura sat nearby, still tracking the steady echo of communications from Imperial space. There was less noise now, less tension. That, in its own way, felt meaningful. They are quiet, Laura said softly, processing everything. So are we, replied. Sometimes silence is not empty, sometimes it is where choices grow. Hours passed before the next major signal arrived. Grant was the first to detect it. She straightened in her seat, eyes locked on the stream forming before her. It was strong. It was clear. It carried none of the earlier hesitation. Incoming transmission, she announced. Imperial central voice, high authority level. Stepped forward, heart steady but alert. Root it through, he said. The bridge filled with a deep, measured tone. Not cold, not warm, but thoughtful. Human fleet, the voice spoke. Your behavior has deviated from historical patterns of emergent species. Your message has been examined by the highest tier. Your restraint has been observed. Your unity has been noted. A pause followed, as if the speaker chose its next words with care. The Galactic Empire acknowledges your refusal to submit through fear. Empire does not yet understand your method, but it recognizes stability where aggression was expected. Therefore, Imperial enforcement action is suspended. A soft murmur of relief passed across the bridge. Held still, listening closely. A new channel is being prepared, the voice continued. Not of command, but of dialogue. Further communication will define mutual boundaries and shared passage protocols. Your continued posture of non-aggression is required. The signal ended. Silence followed, but this silence was not the heavy one of before. It felt lighter, uncertain but hopeful. Allowed himself a slow breath. They stepped back, he said quietly. They chose not to crush us. Nodded, they chose to talk. On Earth, listened as the report reached her station. Her hands trembled slightly as relief washed through her chest. Laura's eyes softened. They suspended action, Laura said. That means they accept our presence, at least for now. It means we earn time, replied, and time is everything. Jake received the confirmation soon after. He closed his eyes for just a moment, gathering the calm he had forced himself to hold for so long. Then he opened them and spoke into the secure channel. All fleets maintain current position, he ordered. No change, no celebration. We remain steady until further notice. The human ships held as instructed. Their lights stayed soft. Their spacing remained careful. To any watching eye, they looked the same as before, but inside them something had shifted. Hope had entered where only tension had lived. In a distant imperial chamber, the strategist stood before the supreme authority, reviewing human data one final time. They are not like previous species, he said. They do not bend fully, yet they do not lash out. Their strength is controlled, not wild. Can we control them? The authority asked. Not through fear alone, the strategist replied. If we wish stability, dialogue is the path. A long pause followed. Then let us try this new path, the authority said quietly. A formal channel link opened between Empire and humanity. This time, the communication was not a warning or evaluation. It was a shared space, equal in structure, and Laura stood ready as the first true exchange flowed. We recognize your ability to endure, the imperial voice said. Explain your final position. Stepped closer to the microphone, feeling the weight of an entire world behind her. She did not speak as a hero. She spoke as a simple human, steady and clear. Humanity does not seek to rule you, she said. We seek to live beside you. We will defend ourselves if needed, but we prefer understanding. We will respect your space if you respect ours. We believe strength should not always break but sometimes protect. Her words carried across the void, not sharp, not desperate, just honest. On the far end, the imperial voice responded after a long moment. Such a position is rare. Empire will consider long-term coexistence parameters. Your fleet may withdraw slightly from border regions while maintaining visibility. Formal dialogue will continue. It was not full peace, but it was not oppression either. Heard the words and lowered his shoulders slightly for the first time in days. His crew exchanged quiet looks of relief, careful not to break discipline. We did not kneel, he said, and they did not strike. Gave a faint smile. That may be the beginning of something new. Across the human worlds, the news began to spread, not as loud celebration but as cautious understanding. People listened from homes, outposts, ships, and settlements as the terms were shared. Parents held children a little closer. Workers paused a little longer to look at the stars. The sense of disaster lifting was slow but real. On a small colony moon, an old farmer looked up at the sky and whispered, "We're still here." Back in orbit, Jake watched the updated fleet map. Imperial ships eased back slightly. Lines softened. The balance shifted from direct confrontation to something almost respectful. Begin slight withdrawal by percentage, he instructed. Hold formation integrity. We keep our message clear even in movement. The ships obeyed, moving just enough to show cooperation without surrender. Every motion was careful, controlled, meaningful. In the operations room on Earth, sank into a chair, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Laura placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You spoke for all of us today," Laura said. "So did you," replied. "We all did in our own way." Laura looked at the live feed, now calmer, quieter, more stable. "They may still test us," she said. "This story is not over." "No," agreed, but the first chapter changed everything. Out among the stars, the human fleet moved slowly into a new alignment, still visible, still firm, but less tense. Imperial sensors tracked them, but the signals no longer bristled with threat. They watched with a new kind of attention, one mixed with curiosity. In the Imperial strategist's private view chamber, he replayed one final segment of the human message, the line that spoke of storms, of scars, of stubborn hope. He found himself returning to it again and again. "They are strange," he murmured to himself, "but perhaps strange is not the same as dangerous." He stood in silence, watching the slow drift of ships on his screen. On horizon light took a slow step toward the observation window, looking out into the endless dark. The stars felt different now, less like eyes watching, more like distant witnesses to a quiet decision. A junior officer approached. "Sir," he said softly, "do you think they will ever truly trust us?" Considered the question. "Trust takes time," he replied, "but so does understanding. Today we earned the first moment of both." The officer gave a small nod and stepped away. In the quiet halls of the United Earth Command, Jake allowed himself a moment to lean back in his chair. He thought of the long path that had led humanity here. The wars, the discoveries, the failures, and the stubborn belief that survival meant more than submission. He spoke quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "We did not raise our voices, we raised our presence." And across the void, the Empire listened. Days passed, and with each passing moment, the sharp edge of danger softened. Negotiation channels stabilized. Boundaries were discussed. Paths for trade and restricted zones were mapped. Not all tension vanished, but the slow shift from enemy to neighbor had begun. Human stations returned to normal rhythm. Children returned to classes. Builders returned to their projects. The fear did not vanish, but it loosened its grip. Outside one of Earth's cities stood under a clear night sky. The stars above no longer felt like silent judges. Instead, they felt like open doors waiting for careful steps. She whispered, "We stood and they listened." Far away, among ancient structures and calm crystal halls, the Imperial strategist watched the last traces of fleet data scroll across his screen. He did not yet understand humans fully, but he saw something his people had forgotten long ago. Choice without cruelty. Strength without hunger for control. A voice that did not shout, but still carried across the galaxy. And so the warning that once threatened erasure became the beginning of a new line in galactic history, not written in fire, not forced by chains, but shaped in quiet defiance and patient resolve. Humanity did not bow, it did not strike, it simply stood. And in that steady stand, the future changed its direction.